escape. I don't really have much to
Okay,
say about
that's fine.
it.
Alright.
Good luck with the run.
Yeah, thanks, Dak. See you later.
Take care.
Alright, so I guess we're all ready. So I'm gonna count down. Let's go in 3, 2, 1, go. Can y'all believe they're letting me do another run? I sure can't.
Sure.
Okay, so this is Ape Escape. The goal of this game is to catch the monkeys that have escaped and are going back in time and being bad monkeys. So each level has a certain amount of monkeys in them for you to catch, and to progress to the next one, you have to catch a subset of them. So like this level has 4 monkeys total, and I only have to catch 3.
There's a small thing to note straight away as well. You'll see whenever he's catching monkeys, he'll switch to the stun club straight after. That's because when you catch something with the net, there's an animation of like the monkey getting sent off to wherever they keep all the monkeys. And if you switch to the stun club, it cancels out that animation and lets you start moving again sooner. So it's something very small, but it adds up when you're catching a bunch of monkeys throughout the game.
Yeah. Like if it saves a second and you catch 100 monkeys, then like that's a minute 40. So every time I get a new gadget, I have to do a training level beforehand. This one is for the water net, which lets me catch monkeys in the water. These are unfortunately unskippable, so I will have to do them all for every new gadget.
So yeah, the start of this game is just a lot of small movement optimizations. For example, they're trying to get, the monkey from as far away as possible and start turning around beforehand. It's just a lot of small stuff to try and save as much time as you can while you don't have as many gadgets, so the movement's a lot simpler.
One of the major things in the early levels is optimizing the camera control. This game lags a lot and has a very, very poor draw distance. So if you can get the camera like down away from the level at all times, that's going to save you some time.
Yeah, especially in a level like this where there's a lot, like it's a fairly large level, there's a lot going on with all the rain and everything, so it makes a big difference. And then at the end there's a very cool catch with the ground pound, where when you ground pound with the net, it changes the hitbox to be quite a lot larger than you would, I think, guess it should be. And so it extends both below and above Spike and where the net is. And so, because that monkey sits right by the edge, if you just swim up to there and then ground pound, you can get him without actually climbing up onto the ledge.
Oh no. Might be bad.
So yeah, this level is all based around a cycle, so this first monkey can be a bit of a troll sometimes. Okay, shouldn't be too bad, but so once you get to this second area here, there's an elevator, and you need to catch the elevator cycle, otherwise you need to wait for it to go around another time. So we just got it there, nice.
Yeah, missing that cycle loses like a fair bit of time.
Mm-hmm.
Elevator's not particularly fast.
Yeah. Another cool strat with ground pounding there, where we need to knock the egg that monkey is hiding under over. And so if you ground pound with the stun club, and then after you've knocked the egg over, switch to the net, which you can do during that same ground pound, it will switch to the net and catch the monkey that gets revealed from underneath the egg.
So the levels in this game are divided into 3 levels per time era. So like the previous one was like the earliest time period in the primordial ooze, and this one is going to be like the dinosaur area. Yo. I got the good RNG and wasn't even prepared for it.
No. So yeah, this room here is the first, I guess, major instance of RNG in this game. It plays a very heavy factor, especially in the late game. That room has 8 possible combinations of where those monkeys in the crates are, and so obviously the optimal ones is for all the monkeys to be in one side of the room so that you can just run along one side and then leave straight away. But you can get some very interesting patterns that are a little bit or a lot slower than that.
Yeah, I think you can get one on all on the left and one all on the right, so I'm guessing it's 1 in 4 to get the perfect luck. It's so inconsistent with this lately.
So I won't talk too much about it because we have missed it, but this trick here, you want to jump from a specific spot out of this water, and then that monkey that is running in and jumping in the UFO now will just not notice you. And so if he doesn't notice you, you can sneak up on him and catch him before he gets in the UFO. And by doing that, it means that you get to finish the level one monkey earlier, essentially, which ends up saving quite a bit of time in this level. Pretty bad RNG there, stuck under a couple of boulders.
Yeah.
Too bad.
I also did a slope jump there. Slope jumps work sort of how they do in like MMX, where you start walking up the slope and then you jump at the right time before you sort of fall into the falling animation, and you carry the momentum of the slope upwards into a really high jump. I don't think we do too many slope jumps in any percent, but...
No. There's there's one as a backup if you miss the ground pound strat in Primordial Ooze, and other than that I can't think of anything off the top of my head. We'll get to, I guess, why maybe they're not so prevalent. There's a gadget we'll be getting in a couple of levels that pretty much nullifies a lot of what you would normally have to do in this game. So.
Yeah.
Monkey at the start here you need to sneak up on. You can notice he's got dark blue pants. The monkeys, the color of their pants sort of determines what kind of a monkey they are. So the dark blue there means that he can run super quickly. And so if he sees you before you can catch him right at the start there, he'll just like leg it and run like insanely fast, like Sonic, away from you. Then there's the monkeys with the yellow pants there, just your standard ones, they're the most common. Monkeys with light blue pants are more calm and docile, they don't really put up too much of a fight. Got green pants, which can see you from quite a long while away, and they normally have rockets on their back that they fire at you. Got black pant monkeys, which normally have guns and shades on, they're the cool guys. You
Yeah,
have
they usually have
monkeys, which
weapons
can
as
see you
well.
from, white ones can see you from even further away than the green ones, and then I think red normally have like boxing gloves or something there. Again, a lot more aggressive than some of the other monkeys.
Yeah. So one minor thing here that's going to come into play a lot later. I should be taking fall damage from this fall, but I swung my Sun Club as I was falling, and if I do that until I hit the ground, that cancels all fall damage just by swinging any gadget, really.
Another thing that a pretty minor death a little bit earlier on, but there was happened when attempting what is called a neutral double jump. So in this game, if you try and double jump and just hold the stick in the direction you're wanting to go, on the second jump it will reset your momentum. Now this isn't optimal, and so if you let go of the analog stick for the second jump input and then hold it back down afterwards, you won't lose the momentum that you normally would by just doing a double jump while holding the analog stick in the direction, and so that allows you to make jumps that would normally not be possible.
Yeah, you saw the difference on that death. Like, whenever I did a normal one, I wasn't even close, but whenever I did the double jump, I made it pretty cleanly.
So yeah, now we're in the training room where I mentioned this gadget just completely breaks the game. The way it works is when you pull back the slingshot, the game sort of treats you as if you're on the ground. And so during that time, you have a small window where you can jump again in midair, and then you can chain these together as many times as you want. And so, more or less understandably, the fact that you can infinitely jump completely breaks the flow of the game and makes it a very interesting speedrun.
Yeah. It leaves you with a lot of route options, like this one here. So that monkey is just sitting there. He doesn't see you unless you come in from behind. So I can just fall straight down and catch him as I'm falling.
Yeah, they'll catch the sun. So yeah, it's another thing where, you know, the hitbox of the net and spike when you're swinging it doesn't really care about, you know, walls or anything. It's not really logical in that you can just sort of catch stuff through walls if you poke the net through it. And so it allows you to just drop down, and because of where he is, line yourself up and just fall straight on top of him with the net and catch him. So we killed that enemy there because he can drop explosives, and if you're very lucky, you can also drop some guided pellets. That plays more of a role later in the game when we need those for, you know, bosses or yeah, I think it's mostly just bosses, not mini bosses that we need the explosives for.
Yeah, the slingshot has infinite the normal pellets, but the other two pellets have an ammo system. It drops from enemies.
So we're going into the first buzz level now, and we're probably already left the first buzz level now. These levels, by beating him, you only end up getting, I think it's 5 Spectre tokens, and they're not required for the any % run of the game. And so if you just leave and then go back into the level select, it will just skip over those levels completely, and so save time, because we don't have to do them by just leaving and going onwards in the game.
Yeah, they unlock quote-unquote fun little mini-games, but obviously we only need those in 100%, so...
So this is the next gadget that gets a lot of prolific use throughout the run. It's the hula hoop, which makes you go fast and can be chained together with other mechanics that are in the game, including infinite jump, to make the movement really, really smooth and nice to watch.
Yeah.
So straight away here, I guess not so much, but we'll see it in a little bit, where if you can't, or if you're using the hoop and then you hit the button that you have the hoop binded to, it will stop the hoop from actually giving you, you know, the speed boost that it gives you. Now this, if you do cancel that and then within a certain amount of time hit jump, then you'll carry the momentum that you had from the hula hoop into the jump. And so this can then be chained by doing a fairly intense set of inputs close together. This can also be chained with infinite jump, and it allows you to carry a lot more momentum into the subsequent infinite jumps. And so instead of just getting a lot of height, you can also get a lot of distance with them as well.
Yeah, normally if you jump right out of the hoop, you just cancel all your momentum and do a normal double jump, but with boost jumps, you can see, like here, for example, I get way more forward momentum. Then I fail the neutral double and lose it all.
It's useful in some spots as well, where we may not need to use infinite jumping to, you know, make it over a gap, because it can be a little slow. And so if we get the opportunity to just use a boosted jump or a boosted double jump as well, because again, doing the double jump, if you release the stick, you can carry the same momentum you're getting from the boosted jump into the second jump. You can use that in some areas where you don't actually need to use infinite jumping to make it a bit more optimal.
I can't believe that monkey didn't see me. Some of the AI is a little weird. Like sometimes the monkeys will just not notice you, even though you're right in front of them.
Especially, it seems a lot of them are programmed to notice you when you're coming from specific directions, and so because we're sort of sequence breaking and coming from directions that the game doesn't expect us to, a lot of the time monkeys will just sort of be really confused until you actually get really close to them, as to why you've come from behind where they were expecting you to come from. So,
hello.
This is an interesting level in that it's one of the few levels that don't actually have very tightly closed up out of bounds areas. So, just the camera.
Yeah.
So, most of the game is sort of, as broken as it is, the actual design of the levels is fairly tight in that a lot of the out of bounds are all just blocked off corridors. You can't really do anything from out of bounds. This level is an exception where you can go out of bounds here, line yourself up and aim at the portal that you can see up the top there, and then do a set of infinite jumps and hit the bottom side of the portal, and it takes you through to the next area. Hit the loading zone, and then you don't have to go all the way around and come out through that water you see on the left there. It's a very scary strat, I guess is the only real way to put it, in that if you fail the infinite jumps at all, you'll just fall into a bottomless pit. While this might not sound like the worst thing in the world, it doesn't actually have a death plane. And so falling into this bottomless pit is actually just falling into a bottomless pit and need to exit the level and re-enter. And so it loses a lot of time if you mess up the double jumps there.
Yeah, the old strat was you had to go like all the way around. This saves a good number of seconds, probably like upwards of 10 around that, but it does carry a very large risk of having to exit and re-enter. It's literally bottomless, yeah. Very kind of the developers to just leave that lying around.
Yeah. So moving on to the next area, there's some nice technical movement at the start of this level where you do a couple of infinite jumps, land on this little stick here, and then do another boosted jump to infinite jumps off of that, and then get up to the first monkey that's up here. So, a little bit of a mess up at the start there with this one. Well, you sort of got the idea of where it's going.
That's okay.
And then this will be the first use of any of the other pellets from the slingshot. I guess the first actual use of what it's meant to be as the gadget. So you take aim at the mammoth over here to knock the monkey that's inside of the basket on top of it out so that you can actually catch him. And so you use an explosive and a homing pellet to knock him out in 2 shots.
The homing pellets are nice because they don't go straight, they sort of arc around. So you can almost it's almost like a CFO from Mega Man where you let the homing pellet fly as the iframes are wearing off. It saves a little bit of time. Okay, so this is the actual, flying intended gadget in the game. We don't use it too much. I do use it a little bit, but it's pretty outclassed by the slingshot.
Yeah.
That's a good question, Sparky. Do you know how many monkeys there are in this game?
I believe there are 204 total in the game. I'm not sure how many of those we catch through this run.
Yeah.
I may be off on that number. I looked it up a couple of weeks ago and don't know if I'm remembering it.
I would guess we catch less than half in this run.
Yeah. So this level's interesting in that there's a couple of different routes. I think orrsa's going to be doing 222,
Yes.
which refers to the number of monkeys you catch in each room. So there's 3 separate areas, and each of them have varying amounts of monkeys. You can completely skip those first 2 that we caught and do 033. You can do 222. You can do 231, I believe, as well. And so they're all, some are a little bit harder, some are just, it's preference, and there's not too much difference between each of the routes.
Yeah. It's okay. If you miss the first one, there's a pretty quick backup. Right over
So
here.
this area is one of, definitely, I think, the worst in the game as far as lag is concerned.
Yeah.
It's a very big open area. There's not much you can do as far as the camera movement to actually reduce it a whole lot. And especially when you're trying to do infinite jumps, because lag in this game actually slows down the frame rate completely, as well as the frames that you can actually do inputs on. So when you're lagging a lot, you actually need to adjust the timing of your infinite jumps. Otherwise, you just, you'll fail them and fall down. So it definitely makes a very large impact, not only on the actual time that it loses, but you need to adjust your playstyle based on the lag that you're getting. As well as the fact that the camera controls are all done via the D-pad in this game, and it's incredibly hard to actually use them in any meaningful way.
Yeah, the controls in this game are really awkward. If you played it as a kid, you probably know. But just the fact that you have to jump with the shoulder buttons, and it's just
they,
all over the place.
Really, I guess, yeah, pushed the actual, control. I believe this game came out as sort of the flagship product for the dual analog controller, and so they really pushed that controller to the limits to sort of show everything that it could do.
Come back.
Always liked Hot Springs, it's a nice level.
Yeah, definitely. I should say there is a no infinite jump category for this game, where you are not allowed to use the infinite jump. And that level is really, really hard if you don't have the infinite jump. Like, the intended platforming is all over the place. Okay. So we're almost back to modern times already. We just have feudal Japan and then back to the modern day.
You say no fun allowed in the chat there, but the no infinite jump category is actually very interesting. While I think from an outside perspective, seeing the infinite jump is very cool. The monotony of it, I guess, sort of gets a little old after a little while when you're running the game a lot. And so the no infinite jump actually has some really cool strats that you don't get to see anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's nice.
You can still do some like major skips without the slingshot.
Yeah. Something quick to mention there, I guess at the start of the level you wouldn't notice those 3 monkeys that are sort of standing in a circle. I think they're meant to be in a band or something along those lines.
Yeah.
If you go in and you can see all the bios of the monkeys once you catch them after you finish the game, but Yeah, so they're meant to be in a band or something. They're standing in a circle. You can just sort of boost a jump, or even just use the hoop to run into the middle of them, and then you just swing your net around in a circle, and you'll catch all three immediately after each other. It's really cool.
You mean like how much time fast? The world record is a 55 that should be a 53, so like maybe 10 minutes?
So this level, as someone starting out playing the game, this is probably one of the most worrying levels that you'll encounter. You can see we're doing infinite jumps over, you know, just empty pits and bottomless voids. When you're starting out, training together infinite jumps, especially long ones like this one here, is very difficult. And so, again, when you're starting out, you'll often be dropping infinite jumps. And so in this level, when you drop infinite jumps, you just die because you're over void most of the time. And so it's somewhere that it's very easy to game over if you're not familiar with stuff yet. Pretty nice gong room there as well.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Ah. Thumb got stuck on the stick. It's okay though. It's not a marathon run without a death in this level.
I'm always so confused about how it's all laid out as well if I ever die here.
Yeah.
Like it sort of wraps around itself a couple of times or something. So heading to the last couple of monkeys in this room here, there's an interesting one where you're meant to use a gadget that you get a bit later, the RC car, to sort of scare this monkey out of this sort of container he's in. If you just push yourself up against the wall, shoot him with the slingshot, he'll notice you run out, and then you can catch him as he comes out of there.
Yep. So this next level is the first boss level. You don't actually have to catch any monkeys in this level. The only objective is find Spectre and beat the boss. And I think this is the only level in the entire game where we don't catch any monkeys.
Yeah. So, because normally there are sort of monkey requirements for certain doors and stuff in this level, but this is one that isn't sort of as tightly kept as some of the others, and so you can go out of bounds here and just run around, open some doors that you're not meant to be able to access until a bit late, like, so you play the level for a bit longer, and by doing that you can just go straight to the end.
Yeah.
So again, hitting some loading zones here from out of bounds. It's another scary one in that if you miss it, there's a literal bottomless pit there, and so
Whoa.
need to make sure to probably hit the loading zone, otherwise you'll need to re-enter.
Yeah, as far as like out of bounds and stuff, this level's probably the most egregious one. Like you don't even need the slingshot to get out of bounds, you can do it with a well-placed double jump and the sky fly. Alright, so that button I hit opens the door to the boss, so we're gonna go up to the top now and fight him. Boss in quotation marks, I guess.
Yeah. So, also sort of getting out there, it's not much of a boss fight at all, and that's because of the damage we can do with, again, the explosive pellets we mentioned earlier. So, by hitting the boss twice with explosive pellets and then twice with that stun club, he only takes 4 hits to beat. Because we have 5 health, we can just run up to him, take damage, which puts him out of his sort of invincible state because he goes all electrical there, I guess. When he's in that state, you can't actually hurt him, but after he damages you, he comes out of that state, and so you can damage abuse over and over to beat the boss super quickly.
Yep.
So now we're out of the past and we're heading back to the present time where, while we've been busy rounding up all the monkeys that escaped throughout time, they've been taking over the modern world. So you can see they've actually stolen the Professor and Misty, or whatever her name is, Natalie, I think.
She's
is her proper
basically
name.
Misty from Pokemon.
Basically Misty. I think she's voiced by the same voice actor as well in the
Yeah.
English version. But yeah, so you can see they've been stolen. Well, stolen, I guess. Kidnapped is a better term to use. And so we get this other lady here now that's running us through the tutorials and stuff, and so they'll come in a bit later where we'll need to rescue them in one of the final levels. This is the final gadget we'll be getting in this run. Use it to run through here. It won't see too much use in the actual run, I guess as it's intended. We'll be using it more as a weapon than anything else, because when it explodes, it does, I believe, the same damage as an explosive pellet, so it can be useful in some bosses. So here, for example, would be somewhere where you're expected to use the RC card, but the monkey just sort of walks on over, and again, we can shove our net through the wall there and chimp it out, actually scaring him out of his cage.
It's my favorite thing about the final boss in this game. You don't have to look at it, I guess. Like, there isn't much positive about it. I guess that's a positive. Like, if you'd have to look at the boss, then the fight would be infinitely worse. So that's good.
Here's one of those two cool monkeys hanging out on top of the pipe. Head through to the sewers part of this level. This is meant to be where we got up to there, is somewhere where you get to by actually going through the front end of the sewers, and that's sort of the end of the level. You go, I think there's a Spectre coin up there, and then that last monkey. But instead we come through the back and run through these sewers backwards. So means we don't have to worry about catching a certain amount of monkeys. I think we catch them anyway to open up. There's a cutscene there that opens up the entrance. Yeah, instead we just entered through the back. We pretty smoothly got through the sewers. Got hit by the purple Pikachu's once there, I think.
Yeah, that monkey there with the purple Pikachu is like the worst thing in the entire game.
Yeah, very, very bad. It's awkward, it's a tight space. The purple Pikachu can sort of knock you up against the wall, and because it's a slope, you'll then go into the sliding animation and slide straight back down into it, and then you'll get hit by it again, and you can very literally just be chained into dying by that purple Pikachu if it decides it doesn't want to move around too much to keep you in one spot.
Yeah, whenever you go into the sliding animation, the game cancels your invincibility frames, which is a really nice feature. Let's see how my mech fights are today.
Also use an explosive here to knock that monkey down enough for us to catch him. If you don't do that, you can catch him by just straight up whooping at him, but if he sees you, he'll jump into that platform there, which is this big sort of mech thing. And if he does do that, you'll need to enter this area and then go back out, and he'll be out of it, which obviously loses a little bit of time.
So early.
So this route is actually somewhat recent. We never used to fight this mech, but it was found that even if you don't get any quick hits, which hopefully we can show at least one up here, but if not, it's not a big a deal.
Yeah.
But fighting that mech actually ends up being, at worst, even with the old route that went and caught another monkey in a separate room. So because that mech is just on the route, it really doesn't feel like it should be, but I guess because it's like no detour at all to actually fight that mech, it ends up being faster. Get the RC car out here for this monkey. You don't have to, again, there's not really many places where you absolutely have to use the RC car in that way, but this monkey can just decide to be a bit of an ass, if I'm putting it lightly, and so you can go up there and shoot him with the slingshot and he'll notice you, but then he'll just sort of run backwards and forwards inside the cage and not come out, so it's a lot more consistent to just pull the RC car out and force him to go straight out of the cage.
Hey guys, if you don't mind me mentioning, I just want to mention that we are doing this to help bring over 2 Redders for the Mega Man. Went through 3 relay at this year's GDQ, and it's going to be the first time that there's ever going to be a Mega Man relay this big, and it's not just going to have Casio and Chrissy in it, but also Fatso, Cool Kid, Cypher, Duckfist, Dexter, ND, Fast C, Feral Pigman, a lot of great runners, so there's a lot of good stuff going on to be able to make sure that that will be the best as possible.
So we'll be going for a cool catch here called Basement Patch. I mentioned earlier when we went for that ground pound strat in... that's okay. We'll get to see it anyway. I mentioned earlier in the ground pound strat in Primordial Ooze that the net hitbox extends both above and below where it sort of seems it should be. And if you use the RC car to knock that monkey that's hanging on the rail underneath there, it will sort of push the monkey up in an animation before he actually falls down to the ground. And so when you combine that with the ground pound, you can actually, catch that monkey without having to go all the way down and catch him where he falls down to. And so that actually saves quite a bit of time over the alternative monkey if you can get it the first try.
Yeah, we used to do that with the stun club, and if you do that, it's a single frame you have to switch to the net. With the RC car, you have 3, 1 additional on either side.
So it still saves a little time to do it with the stun club because you don't have a weapons menu to actually switch to the RC car and then switch it back out again. But because of the extra frames that you get, it makes the trick so much more consistent to actually do it with the RC car.
That was really far over. That last monkey varies like wildly where his position is.
So you can see he's really far over this side. Sometimes he can be a lot closer to, the door that opens once we caught him. So, again, RNG, especially later on, it just starts playing such a huge factor in this run, which,
This is the start right here.
yeah, while, I love this run and it's a really cool and fast-paced speed game, once you get to, 35-minute mark, it just becomes really quite awful. A lot of good runs have been lost to, stuff that is completely out of the control of the runners, completely out of the runner's control. So it's very hard to see good runs die to RNG at the end of the game.
So you've seen both attacks from this guy already, the red and the blue. You can see the red is pretty significantly faster, but it's a coin toss which one you get, and you have to toss the coin 4 times.
Yes, I guess more or less what you're hoping for here is at least 2 and 2. As long as it's 50-50, I don't think anyone can really complain too much.
Yeah.
Obviously, you would like more reds, but as long as it's even, it's not too big a deal. It's the next boss that really turns up the RNG to 11.
I got 3 blues. Suboptimal. A little bit unlucky.
similar thing here where you can see he's jumping up just to avoid the one of the UFOs chases you, and so to avoid that he's doing some infinite jumps. And then similarly with how if you're, you know, swinging the net or swinging the stun club when you hit the ground, if you're pulling back the slingshot, you won't take any fall damage when you hit the ground.
You don't have to do that. Like, there's other ways to avoid the UFOs, but it's kind of a foolproof one, I guess.
Yeah, everyone has their own preferences what they like to do. So we're now into phase 2. He won't go back to, you know, shooting reds or blues at this point. He just sort of flies off the arena and does this swooping attack thing as well as opening up his weak point. And you can notice we have the Skyflyer out at the moment instead of the stun club in our triangle slot. It's because for the last hit of this boss, the Skyflyer actually does a small amount of damage. And so there used to be a strat where as he swooped in for you, you would try and hit him with the stun club because he's got a very slow flying animation that he does on the final hit. And so you want him to be close to the middle to speed it up a lot because he won't have to, you know, fly in and explode like you just saw. So we used to do that strat with the stun club, and it was a lot more inconsistent. You actually had to, you know, put some effort into timing the hit to actually make it work. But with the Skyflyer, as long as you're, you know, spinning it around, it just makes a hitbox that if anything runs into it, it takes damage. And so as the enemy flies into you, it will just take damage from it and makes the strat pretty free.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I just wanted to mention also that we've got multiple donation incentives coming up, and there's actually one for classic or remake music in La Molana, and the donation bid pool for that will actually be closing out after Super Mario Bros. 3, which is the next game. So if you want to have an influence on that, make sure to get your donations in for that soon. You can donate by just hitting the donate button below the screen.
This is the level where I mentioned a bit earlier, where saving, you know, the Professor and Misty at this point. So this section here is fighting a little mini-boss to save the Professor. If we hadn't missed that one explosive shot, we could have beaten that clown in one less hit. Would have saved a little bit of time, but it's not a big deal.
That was a brand new mistake. I've never, like, actually just whiffed an explosive on the console before.
Now we'll head to the coaster, and this is probably, I think this is the only real auto-scroller in this run.
Unfortunately, this is not one of those levels that is that plays fast and loose with the terrain out of bounds. We've looked for a long time to try to skip this, and the level's just too sealed up to skip anything, really.
Yeah. In lots of different sections to the level as well. You know, there's been attempts to skip this roller coaster. Obviously, it's I don't know, it's probably a solid minute and a half long, and you're just not doing anything. So there's been a lot of attempts to try and skip this. There's been a lot of attempts to try and skip the whole first section and just go straight to the second half of the level. And then in the second half of the level, there's been, you know, people looking to skip, having to go into a certain part and unlock some UFOs and stuff like that. So everything is just very, very you know, tightly sealed up. There's no sort of leaks, there's no cracks you can slip through, nothing like that.
Yeah, there's one fairly large one right at the end, but you have to do a lot in the level to get to that. Which is obviously not ideal.
Yeah. Yeah, it's actually somewhat surprising how big the skip to actually get to the final boss is, considering how tight the rest of the level actually is. a small use of the sky player here just to sort of ease us down onto this ledge.
Poverty triple.
So, yeah, these 3 monkeys here are sort of, they drop down, and if you don't catch all of them before any of them get in the coffins, you have quite a long wait before they'll come back out of the coffins, so you want to catch all 3 there. Normally the 2 on the right would jump down at the same time, and so it's actually a bit tight to try and catch all of them, but they are pretty much gifted that for free.
They can be really nice, and they can also be really mean. Like, sometimes you just get the 2 on the left that go down first, and then there's just nothing you can do in that case. So this is a weird boss
here as well. Yeah, it's very interesting as to why it actually works the way it does. First of all, you can just sort of crawl up against the wall here, and none of these RC cards that he fires off can actually damage you for whatever reason. And then secondly, as he charges you, you can just sort of hit him into the corner of the wall, and instead of taking, 5 phases to beat him, it just takes the 1, and so it doesn't really make much sense why it works, but it does, and so it makes that fight a lot quicker, because you don't have to go through 5 phases of him throwing RC cards at you and then doing 1 hit over and over.
Okay, so that's the first half, Inspector Land. Now we'll be going up into the sky, chase down Spectre. Oh, I have plenty. Okay. I had to like pause and check my lives to make sure I had enough for the death abuse.
So yeah, small death abuse here. You can see there's these 2 sort of round pillars, and they have UFO things on top of them. The UFOs won't actually come out until you go into this room here and go down to the bottom. A monkey will run around and press a button or something, and then the UFOs get activated. And you need to catch the monkeys that are in the UFOs to actually open the door to the main castle of this area, and that's what I mentioned before, is people have sort of spent a lot of time even trying to just skip these 2 UFOs and having to go to that other room. These UFOs, hopefully they'll cooperate nicely, but they can sort of break, I guess, detach themselves from their own hitboxes, and if that happens, it becomes very hard to hit with a slingshot, as well as they fly a lot more erratically, and the actual visual of the UFO doesn't really line up with what you're trying to hit, and so they can cost you a lot of time. People have definitely lost runs to these UFOs going really poorly.
So then once you're in the mansion, the game's pretty much over. You're supposed to go through like this big obstacle course to open the painting where Spectre's hiding behind, but the loading zone is right up here, so.
So across that bridge there is what I mentioned with you don't need to use infinite jumps, you can just use the jump across it, it saves a little time instead of doing infinite jumps. And then now we're into the final boss. So the first phase is pretty straightforward. It's just boost up to him and hit him as fast as you can. If you have any explosives here, you can speed up this process a little bit by, when you get knocked back, you can shoot him with explosives that do similar damage to the Sun Club, and so that can speed things up a bit and not having to actually run all the way towards the turret. But, once that phase is over, it's where the game just sort of takes control and decides whether it's going to be a good run or not.
Yeah, here comes Bad Boss.
This final boss has 4 different attacks. More or less all we know about this fight is that he can't do the same attack twice unless he doesn't have both of his arms, and like the attack needs 2 arms or something along those lines. So we're hoping for that attack that we saw first there, so it's actually nice to start off with one of those. We need 2 hits for each arm, and so while he has 2 arms, it's 1 in 4 I think for getting that attack, and then changes a little bit as I mentioned once he only has 1. But so far hasn't been too bad. If we can get some more quickly, it'll be a nice fight.
Yeah. I'm also staring at into the corner here because everything the boss does lags the game, so you don't want to look at him. Inspector.
But I think what's the worst? I think something ridiculous.
No name's 28, I think.
Yeah, 28 cycles.
In the no IJ record.
So this boss optimally you would beat in 5 cycles, but yeah, as we just mentioned, there have been cases of 20 plus, the highest being 28 cycles, and so when you think of each cycle losing probably 5 to 10 seconds, somewhere in that realm, it's a crazy amount of time that can be lost just because the boss didn't feel like doing the right attacks.
Yeah, theoretically, as far as we know, this fight could go on indefinitely, but
Yeah.
the worst we've ever seen is 28. Alright, time's coming
Now that
up.
we're done with it, yeah, we've just got 3 hits left. Time will come when he hits the 3rd hit and the centerpiece of the boss hit.
Oh, a sad death there. Alright, time.
GG.
GG. Yeah, thanks for commentating on such short notice.
Yeah, that's fine. I was around. I think he went a bit better than my commentary last weekend. I was a bit more familiar with it after watching that one.
But yeah, so that's Ape Escape. Hope you guys enjoyed. Pretty fun speedrun, except for the final boss.
Yeah.
Thanks a ton, Orsa, for doing that run, and also for Parso for coming in last second beat string along as a commentator.
Yeah, also thanks Nerf for commentating. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Sitting there with his muted.
Yes. Sorry.
Buddy. It's okay.
Also wanted at least someone to be here, but I've actually never played this game before. So.
Yeah. If Parso wasn't here, Nerf and I probably would have just been talking about, I don't know,
Just
random stuff.
anything.
So you guys lucked out, I guess. But yeah.
Like how 10 is the best classic game, right?
Yeah. Actually.
Glad you agree.
So yeah, I think Mario 3's up next.
Mm-hmm.